Hello there, dear viewer. Today I have a stack of recent 4K home video titles to talk about and perhaps recommend to you for your future watching. I'm going to kick things off with an all-time favourite of mine. It is Austin Powers, International Man of Mystery. This is the UK 4K disc from Icon. I had such a wonderful time revisiting the film that I have seen countless times. This goes back to my childhood when I shouldn't have been watching this film, but my mum and dad had it on DVD, and yeah, I just loved this character of Austin Powers. He would just make me laugh just seeing his face and the facial expressions that Mike Myers puts on in the film. It's a film with lots of colourful costumes and sets, so seeing it on this 4K disc with the addition of HDR this time really did help the film, and I loved watching it again. I don't believe this has had a release in the US yet, just in the UK, but you get this shiny foil slipcover. Inside there are some art cards in here, and there is a poster as well, and you get the film on 4K as well as an additional Blu-ray. So that's what it looks like. It's a film that I know is not for everyone. Some people just do not find it funny at all, but me and my brother, you know, we laugh at every single line of dialogue in this film. It's so funny. So good memories with Austin Powers, and now those memories can be relived in 4K. Moving on to something much more modern, I have Alien Romulus on 4K. This is a film that I missed when it came out at the cinemas earlier this year. So to be able to watch it at home in 4K in the comfort of my own sofa, well, that's a good thing. A lot has been said about this film in terms of its story and design, harkening back to the original Alien film from 1979, and some people have even used the term nostalgia baiting, because there are some things in this film that are not just homages to the original film, but they are just straight copied and pasted into this film. And this is not a film that I can call bad. I enjoyed this film quite a lot, and all of the elements, including the direction from Fede Alvarez, is just brilliantly suspenseful, and he's very well versed in horror himself as a director. So I had a great time with the film, but I can't help feeling like it is just very much a modern remake of the original Alien film. And I guess they're kind of taking the approach that Disney took with Star Wars when they made The Force Awakens, basically just copy and pasting elements from what was successful before in order to create a path for future Alien films. I liked basically any sequence with the xenomorphs or the face huggers in the film, and all of the stuff about the acidic blood, and there are some designs that are almost quite genital looking, which are quite peculiar and I wasn't expecting. And another thing I wasn't expecting going in was a CGI version of a character from an older Alien film where the actor is no longer with us, and it wasn't just a small cameo. They had lines of dialogue and they would appear throughout the film. So a very odd choice, an unnecessary choice. And I think that is what people are talking about when they talk about nostalgia baiting. It's the whole thing of, oh, as the viewer, I recognise that thing, therefore I like this. Well, films are a bit more complicated than that. And I think it is a crux that some films and filmmakers rely on to win audiences over. However, the team behind this film, I don't think they needed that. I think the filmmaking is very good. So yeah, some strange choices in this film. I enjoyed it. It's not an amazing film. It's not one of my favourite films. It certainly doesn't reach anywhere near the heights of Alien 1979. Now, in terms of the 4K, it looks brilliant, sounds brilliant, Dolby Vision, Dolby Atmos. It's a modern film. Very rarely do modern film releases on 4K go wrong. So I was happy with this release, but the film itself, I kind of wish it was doing things a bit different. But maybe the next film, because I'm sure there's going to be another film. I don't know if it's been announced yet, but I'm sure the next film will go to some interesting places. Doing some more catch-up of films that I missed at the cinema this year, I got this. This is the 3-movie collection of the Deadpool movies, including the most recent Deadpool and Wolverine, which I keep wanting to call Deadpool versus Wolverine. Deadpool is a character that I found interesting initially, and I know Deadpool from the comic books back in the day. I went through a really strong Marvel phase in my teenage years. There was a Marvel card game that I used to play called Versus System, which I absolutely loved. So I was very well versed in this character even before the first Deadpool film came out. And I really enjoyed that first film because it was different and the character was irreverent, crude. But then moving through these 3 films, and now in the 3rd film in particular, it's kind of tiresome. I've been bludgeoned over the head with Deadpool and Deadpool humour. And at this point, I can't tell what is the character Deadpool and what is just Ryan Reynolds, because it seems to me that the actor and the character have kind of met somewhere in the middle. In the 3rd film, we have the addition of Hugh Jackman as Wolverine, playing one of many Wolverines from various different universes. This is a multiverse story, which is something that Marvel have loved doing in the past few years, sometimes to success, sometimes to very little success. Now, it's great to see these 2 characters on screen together, and particularly seeing Wolverine in the original yellow suit and when he puts the mask on and everything. I got to admit, I really did enjoy seeing that on the big screen. But a lot of this film is the 2 characters kind of arguing with each other, sometimes ripping into each other literally. There are some very, very bloody combat sequences between the 2 characters. But a lot of the film is, again, harkening back to what I talked about with Alien Romulus, this nostalgia baiting. There's so much thrown at you, which are references to previous Marvel films before Disney acquired Marvel, some references to failed Marvel projects where actors had been cast as characters and fans really wanted to see that, but then it didn't happen. There are some actors returning who you would never think would return to play these characters. The film was just too many in-jokes and fan service. And while that is very cool for the fans that love all of this stuff, and I don't want to play anyone else's experience of this film down, but ultimately I think the story just absolutely suffers. The story here is paper thin, and you could say, well, who comes to these films for the story anymore? It's just for the action and the quips and all of the cameos and the little Easter eggs. And well, maybe that's true, but I still like to get a classic film experience of a story being told and being entertained when I watch one of these films. But you know what? I'm happy that film exists, because I've spoken to a lot of people and they absolutely loved the film. They loved all of that stuff I just talked about. So it might have to be filed under not for me, and that's okay. Moving on to the next film. Last night I just watched this release. It is Stir of Echoes, getting a 4K release from Lionsgate. This is a steelbook with a lenticular slipcover as well, which is quite interesting. This is a film from 1999. It is a horror thriller film about this family that live in this house, and the young boy starts to see a ghost lady and starts to interact with her. But one night, the father of the family, played by Kevin Bacon, he is put under hypnosis, and when he comes out of this hypnosis, he also starts to see this dead girl in the house. What happened to this girl? Who killed her? Why is she haunting this house and this family? And we see that this missing girl is at the center of this community, and there are lots of different people who knew her or who were involved. And yeah, it's very much, as a viewer, you're trying to just guess what happened to this girl. It's a film that feels very late 90s in some respects, but also, dare I say it, this is an underrated film, because I don't see many people talking about this film. It isn't rated too highly on Letterboxd and other websites. So I'd hope that this film could get maybe a touch of a reappraisal, because I think Kevin Bacon is really good in it. I really like the direction and some of the horror elements. There are some really strong jump scares that really took me out of my seat in this film. And maybe the film, as it goes along, gets a bit too kind of far-fetched, a bit out there. But like I said, it was the late 90s. These things happened. And I thought the 4K presentation looked pretty good too. I don't know much about what source they went back to for this film. I don't have an older Blu-ray of this. I don't know if that even exists, at least in this country. So not much to compare to, but I liked the presentation. And the film itself, like I said, I think deserves, a bit of a reappraisal, perhaps. Then we come to what I think is perhaps one of the greatest documentaries of all time. It is American Movie, getting a 4K release, something that I did not expect at all. So when this got announced, I was really excited. The film follows this real-life filmmaker, Mark Borchardt, as he is trying to make his horror masterpiece. We follow him throughout this documentary as he's trying to get his film together, and the struggles he has with money and his own kind of motivation and all of the kind of setbacks that he experiences. We see that all in this film, and he is a real character, and he's really passionate about film. It's a film not just about filmmaking, but about American life. It's an insight into the real lives that people live in America, and it's also about perhaps the American dream and people striving for greatness and success and perhaps not achieving it. You know, kind of similar to Hoop Dreams, which was another big documentary from the 90s, where that is about these young kids wanting to become NBA basketball players. And this, in many ways, is like that. It's about a filmmaker wanting to achieve his dream of becoming a successful filmmaker and all of the challenges that face him. Then we have the Hong Kong film Twilight of the Warriors Walled In. This is from director Soi Chang. This is a very recent film about the famous walled city, the Kowloon Wall City in Hong Kong, which was this giant complex where people would live, and it was like its own city in a building, and it very quickly deteriorated. Lots of criminal gangs were based there, lots of drugs there, and eventually the whole thing was ordered to be demolished. I think, was it in the 90s? I can't remember exactly when, but it no longer exists. But from the people that lived there or visited there, it had this kind of gritty, grimy, almost cyberpunk aesthetic, and that is something that the filmmakers have gone for here. And this film is an action martial arts kind of movie about criminal gangs in the walled city, and I had a great time with this. This is a really good film. Soi Chang has made a number of films that I've really loved over the past decade or two, so this is definitely amongst them. And it looks great on the 4K, although there's no HDR on this disc, which is quite an interesting choice for a very modern film, where it definitely could have been an option and perhaps might have aided the film. But other than that, it looks good on the 4K, and I had a great time with it. It actually quite reminds me, the setting of the walled city reminds me a bit of Spirited Away. You know, the bathhouse in Spirited Away is this own kind of city within a building, and I kind of got vibes of that. Obviously the films are very different tonally, but it kind of got bits of that, but that's an aside. A great film, and I had a great time with it. And then we come to this one. This is a box set of the Slumber Party Massacre number 1 and 2. This is from 101 Films. It comes in this rigid hard case, and you get the 2 separate films in their own cases. These are very interesting films, particularly Slumber Party Massacre, the original, because there is almost a feminist take on the slasher horror movie here. And there is a lot to admire about the film, particularly the visuals. I think they looked great on the 4K presentation here, which I believe is exactly the same as the Shout Factory release in the United States. Because on the back of the 101 Films J card, it does actually have a logo for Shout Studios. So while I don't have the Shout Studios version of these films on 4K, I imagine they are the same. And both films in the set have a number of special features on them, including audio commentaries, which I think again are copied over from the Shout Factory release. So this is a great option for UK collectors who want the 4K versions but didn't want to import. And also you get a really cool looking box, and there is a booklet inside as well. So that was just a quick look at some of the 4K discs that I have been enjoying in the recent weeks. If you'd like to get any of these discs, I'll include some purchasing links in the description of the video, which if you use to buy anything, then it helps support the channel at absolutely no additional cost to you. Click the video that's on screen right now if you want some more film recommendations and reviews from me. Thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you soon.